In the world of power and success, betrayal often cuts the deepest. Tonight's story is one that shakes both the boardroom and the bedroom, where trust, ambition, and love collided in the most unexpected way. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to our channel for daily stories filled with twists, lessons, and unforgettable endings. Now, let's begin this journey. At the heart of this story is Adrian Cole, a self-made millionaire who built his company from the ground up. He was sharp, ambitious, and deeply respected in the corporate world. But behind every great leader is someone they trust completely. And for Adrian, that was his wife, Emily. She wasn't just his partner at home, she was also the quiet force guiding him in business. Together, they seemed unstoppable, a power couple admired by all. But as with most stories that glitter on the surface, the cracks were hidden just beneath. For Adrian, the boardroom was his kingdom, where every deal and every signature carried weight. Yet he had no idea that betrayal was already brewing, one that would attack both his empire and his heart. It all began when Adrian's closest associate, Daniel, joined the company as his right-hand man. Daniel had been with Adrian from the early days, standing by his side through challenges and victories alike. To Adrian, Daniel was like a brother, loyal, dependable, and someone who would never betray him. But as the business expanded and the stakes grew higher, Daniel's ambitions began to shift. Daniel wasn't just envious of Adrian's power in the boardroom. He was also drawn to something far more personal. Emily. Their encounters started subtly, innocent conversations at company dinners, lingering glances, and words that carried double meanings. Emily, feeling neglected by Adrian's relentless pursuit of business success, found herself slowly drawn into Daniel's charm. What began as emotional comfort turned into something far more dangerous. The betrayal deepened as Daniel's plans unfolded. While secretly pursuing Emily, he also began undermining Adrian's leadership at the company. He whispered doubts into the ears of investors, manipulated financial documents, and slowly positioned himself as the stronger choice to lead. To the world, Daniel was still Adrian's loyal ally. But in reality, he was weaving a web of lies that would soon unravel everything. The turning point came one stormy evening when Adrian stumbled upon a series of emails that weren't just about boardroom strategies, but also personal confessions of love exchanged between Emily and Daniel. His world shattered in that instant. The empire he built and the love he trusted had both betrayed him in the same breath. What Adrian didn't know was that this discovery was only the beginning. The fallout would shake not just his marriage, but also the company, the town, and everyone who admired him from afar. The story of betrayal in both the boardroom and the bedroom was far from over, and the choices Adrian made next would determine everything. Adrian sat in his office long after midnight, staring at the damning emails on his screen. The words blurred, not because he couldn't read them, but because his mind couldn't accept what his eyes were seeing. Emily, the woman he loved, the woman he thought would stand beside him forever, was in Daniel's arms, both emotionally and physically. The betrayal was unbearable. But Adrian wasn't just a husband. He was a businessman. And he knew the damage went far beyond his marriage. The next morning, Adrian entered the boardroom with a steady face, masking the storm raging inside. The board was gathered for a crucial meeting, and Daniel sat confidently at the table, smiling like nothing had happened. Adrian watched him, trying to hold back the anger that threatened to explode. He knew Daniel wasn't just after his wife. He was after his entire empire. One by one, Adrian began to connect the dots. Financial records didn't add up. Deals that were supposed to benefit the company had quietly redirected profits towards shell accounts. Investors who once trusted Adrian now looked at Daniel with admiration. It was clear Daniel had been setting him up, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And with Emily by his side, Daniel felt untouchable. But Adrian wasn't a man to go down without a fight. Quietly, he began to gather evidence. He hired forensic accountants to trace the money trail, private investigators to document Daniel and Emily's meetings, and lawyers to prepare for the inevitable storm. Every night, Adrian sat in silence, the pain of his wife's betrayal stabbing deeper, but his resolve hardening with every passing hour. Meanwhile, Emily was caught in her own battle. Daniel had promised her affection, attention, and the kind of passion she felt Adrian had abandoned. But as she leaned deeper into the affair, she began to see another side of Daniel, the side that was ruthless, manipulative, and power-hungry. What started as comfort soon became control, and Emily realized she was caught in a web she didn't know how to escape. The tension reached its breaking point during a company gala. Adrian, dressed immaculately, stood before hundreds of guests to deliver a speech about his company's vision. Daniel stood nearby, whispering to investors, while Emily lingered at the edge of the room, her eyes betraying her guilt. Adrian's voice was calm, but his mind was sharp, scanning the faces, noting every reaction, every whisper, every shift in loyalty. He knew war was coming. Later that night, Adrian confronted Emily at home. His voice wasn't raised, but the weight of his words struck harder than any shout could. "You didn't just betray me," he said quietly. "You betrayed everything we built together. You gave Daniel the key to both my heart and my empire." Emily broke down, torn between the life she thought she wanted and the wreckage she had helped create. The lines were drawn. The next moves would decide not just the fate of a marriage, but the survival of a company, a reputation, and a legacy. Adrian was ready for battle, but he knew the cost of exposing the truth would be devastating for everyone involved. Would you like me to continue with part 3 in the same deep, suspenseful style? Adrian didn't sleep that night. He sat in his study, papers scattered across the desk, piecing together the puzzle Daniel had been building behind his back. Every financial irregularity, every forged signature, every hushed deal pointed to the same conclusion. Daniel had been slowly bleeding the company dry, all while smiling across the boardroom table. The betrayal in the bedroom hurt, but this betrayal in the boardroom cut even deeper. Adrian had sacrificed decades of his life to build his empire, and now, the man he once trusted as a brother was using his wife to dismantle it all. The following morning, Adrian called a discreet meeting with his legal team. His lawyers listened in silence as he laid out the evidence he had gathered. Their expressions darkened with every new detail. "This isn't just corporate manipulation," one of them said. "This is fraud. Criminal fraud." Adrian nodded, his jaw tight. He knew the path forward wouldn't be easy. Daniel had influence, investors on his side, and Emily as his silent ally. The courtroom could become just as much a battlefield as the bedroom had. Meanwhile, Daniel's arrogance grew. He flaunted his relationship with Emily more openly now, as though daring Adrian to react. At company lunches, he would casually rest his hand on hers or lean close to whisper something only she could hear. Adrian noticed everything, but he gave nothing away. His silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. Emily, however, was unraveling. The more she saw of Daniel's ruthless ambition, the more she realized she had traded love for manipulation. Daniel didn't want her heart. He wanted her as leverage, a pawn to break Adrian completely. Late at night, she stared at herself in the mirror, haunted by the choices she had made. Could she undo the damage, or was it too late? The turning point came during a board meeting that Adrian had deliberately orchestrated. With Daniel seated across from him, confident and smug, Adrian presented his findings. Slide after slide revealed the discrepancies in the accounts, the hidden transfers, and the offshore accounts Daniel had created. Gasps filled the room. Some board members shifted uneasily, realizing they had unknowingly supported Daniel's schemes. Daniel's smile faltered for the first time. But Adrian wasn't finished. "This company," he said firmly, "was built on trust. Trust that has been shattered, not just in this boardroom, but in my home. Betrayal cuts deep, but truth always finds its way to the surface." His words hung in the air like a verdict. Emily, seated at the back of the room, felt tears sting her eyes. In that moment, she saw the man she had betrayed not as a cold husband, but as the leader, the fighter, the visionary she had once fallen in love with. And the shame was unbearable. Daniel tried to fight back, to deny the accusations, but Adrian had been meticulous. Every document, every transaction, every detail was airtight. The board was shaken, loyalties shifted, and Daniel knew the tide was turning against him. But this wasn't over, not by a long shot, for Daniel was a man who thrived in chaos, and if Adrian thought this exposure would end things, he was mistaken, because Daniel's next move wouldn't just be about the company, it would be personal, very personal. Would you like me to now give you the final part 4, where everything explodes and ends with a powerful outro for your channel? The storm finally broke. Daniel, desperate and cornered, refused to go down quietly. With investors pulling back and the board questioning his every move, he lashed out in the only way he knew how, by striking at Adrian's personal life. Late one evening, Adrian returned home to find Emily waiting for him, a packed suitcase by her side. Her eyes were swollen from crying. "Adrian," she whispered, her voice trembling, "I've made a terrible mistake. Daniel doesn't love me. He never did. I was just his weapon against you." She dropped her gaze, shame flooding her. "I betrayed you in the worst way, and I don't deserve forgiveness. But I need you to know, I see now who he really is." For a long moment, Adrian said nothing. The pain was raw, but behind it was clarity. Betrayal, whether in the boardroom or the bedroom, revealed character, not just of the betrayer, but of the one betrayed. Adrian finally spoke, his voice calm, yet firm. "Emily, choices have consequences. Yours nearly destroyed us, but Daniel's greed, that destroyed him." The next day, Adrian walked into the courtroom prepared for the final battle. Daniel arrived with his usual swagger, but it was a mask. Evidence stacked high against him, witness testimonies lined up, and Emily herself, willing to testify about the manipulation she endured. Daniel had lost control of the narrative. The judge listened carefully as Adrian's team presented the case. Every lie Daniel had spun unraveled thread by thread until there was nothing left but the truth, fraud, betrayal, and the reckless hunger for power. For the first time, Daniel's confidence shattered completely. The verdict was swift. Guilty. Daniel's empire crumbled in an instant. He had gambled everything and lost. As the gavel struck, Adrian exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. It wasn't victory he felt, it was release. The betrayal had scarred him, but it had also revealed his strength. Trust could be broken, but integrity remained. Emily, sitting quietly in the back, wept as she watched Adrian leave the courtroom, not as a broken man, but as one who had faced fire and walked out stronger. Whether she would ever earn his forgiveness, she didn't know. But she understood, now, the depth of what she had lost. Adrian paused outside the courthouse, cameras flashing, reporters shouting. He simply raised his head and said, "Betrayal can wound you, but it cannot define you. What defines you is what you choose to stand for, even when the world falls apart." And that, perhaps, was the true lesson of his story. If you found this story powerful, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more gripping tales we bring to you every day. Remember, life will test you with betrayal, loss, and lies. But it's your choice, whether to let them break you or to rise stronger than ever before. So, if you value stories that inspire, awaken, and remind us of the strength within us, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Tomorrow, another story awaits you. Until then, choose strength, no matter what betrayal you face.